Hi, welcome to Tech Dicted. I am Doreen Shamweno, and today we're just looking at functions. So, first I will mention that every programming language, there are things that are similar. And so, these tutorials are a guide to that because you will notice when you're switching from one programming language to another, there are things that get easier so you don't have to relearn or anything. And so, these are those things functions, um, data types, arrays, if statement, loops. These are things you just need to understand the concept. So, for this, functions, when you're talking about concept, a function is just a block of code that is organized in a way that it works to perform a given function. I know, a given action. Okay. So, when you're talking about a function, let's say sum. Sum is normally something very interesting or usable when it comes to discussing various functions. So sum, mostly when you have to differentiate in most programming languages between data types and variables, which I mentioned earlier, and functions, you will always see this and then this, or just something almost similar to this. So this is how its syntax is like. Here there can be other things like maybe you say it's public, private, protected, or the type of function, void, int, yeah, depending on your programming language. So I will not discuss that because that is language oriented, but I will just talk about a function. Okay, so when we have sum and it's a function, so we know sum adds two or more values. Okay, so I'll just use adds two values. So this sum function, we want it to add two values and output. Okay, output the sum. Okay, so I will say sum is equal to these two values added together. Now that is a function, so there is adding and then there is outputting. Okay, so it's a group of tasks that are working together to output a value. Okay, so now for sum we have the name. Okay, this can be small, and then inside now we say we want to add two values. So first, before we add them, we need to what do we say, we need to declare them. In most programming languages you will have to declare. So declaring means you say you have two values, so let's bring them in. Now remember we mentioned in an earlier video we have data types, and so most probably you will declare the data type that we're using. And for this, since it's addition, it can be either float or integer or others. So I'll just use integer for easy understanding. Integer is 1, 2, 3, 4 with no decimal points. It can be negative, it can be positive up to a certain range. So we will have to declare two. Let me just use int a. This is the first value. Int b. Okay, so we declare, we say we have two integers, and then what we want to do to these two integers is to add them up. And so our answer will also be an integer sum. So how do we add? Sum is equal to a plus b, and then we want it to output. Okay, so I'll just use the word output. Different programming languages will use this differently. Output sum, and then we can close it. So whenever this functions in other programming languages will be called methods. So whenever this method is called or this function is called, then A and B will be added together and an output will be will be outputted. So once we have talked about this, I think you now understand what a function is. So basically a function, we've grouped all this together to perform some certain thing. And for our case, it's to add two values. Okay. Alternatively, we could just write it in the code without a function. It will still work. But then you can't call it, you can't reuse it. So a function allows you to reuse code. Okay, so that's the major benefit of functions. We group things together to perform a certain thing, task. Okay, and then we can call it over and over and over again, and that is a function. So thank you for joining me for this tutorial. I hope to see you on the next ones. Please subscribe to this channel and like this if you enjoyed it. Yeah, have a good time. Tell me what you would like to learn on the next tutorials, and I will be sure to provide it. Bye.